somewhere. Now, in order for me to get that, I would have to start registering your knowledge, if you like, the second you were born.
Well, you wouldn't actually have to do it from the second you were born. You would just have to look at any one time and store
No, you
it.
wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Ah, yes, you would. You see, the experience...
Because you cannot store it, because every time I attempt to take that information from you, I leave a deposit information there, which means the information is wrong.
Yes, you would if you were keeping yourself confined to sort of like the conventional physics that are around at the moment, but...
Well, I can't do anything but stay within the realms of knowledge.
There's such a thing called, oh hell, it's a difficult, an event horizon, I think that's what it's called. And basically what that is, it's just something that exists inside a universe.
Now, we're getting way out here.
Yeah,
Graham, the situation is that if at this second in time, let us say it is now exactly midnight. I can say that because it isn't. It is now exactly midnight.
Yes.
Now, for me to say, Graham will make this decision at this time,
yes,
I would need all the information that your brain has got available to it now.
Yes, quite right.
The trouble is, as soon as I ask the question, your brain gets a new piece of information.
Only if it registers the questions being asked.
Well, if the question is not asked, you can't get an answer.
Ah, yes, you can. You see, the point is that you...
No, you can't. No, you can't. I would have to make the decision at the same time as you, simultaneously.
Well, allow me to explain how you could.
Go on.
If you were to... I mean, you were saying, first of all, just to go back to that further point, if you would have to be there from the moment of birth and take every piece of information. That's not true. What you could do is take... I mean, think of it as a photograph, a snapshot of everything that was in the brain. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So you could take that snapshot. You needn't inform the brain that was happening. You could take it in such a way as that it was within the universe. I know you didn't want to get into the event horizon stuff, but you need to do it. You could take a snapshot of the brain from within some event horizon, and from within that horizon work things out without affecting the brain.
But that isn't possible.
Yes, it is possible. A black hole is an example of one.
That's only your concept of a black hole, and other people's concept too, but no, it isn't.
Well, a black hole is an example of an event horizon.
But we're not talking about something external, we're talking about something in the individual's brain.
Yes,
and in order to take all that information at any given second, it also has to be taken at the same second, the same millisecond, as the decision you are hoping to predict is being made.
Well,
because if you're...
It's an awful long time.
Well, I use it as the smallest time I can register, but it has to be taken instantaneously. In other words, you could never, ever, ever get the information into such a way as to be able to use it to predict the brain's decision. Because in order for you to register the information and then predict however short the time is that it would take for you to interpret, ask the question that needs to be asked in order to predict the answer, the brain will have moved on, and your photograph, as you analogized, your photograph would be wrong because the light will have changed.
Yes, indeed, the analogy of a photograph is a bad one, but I mean it's not a static photograph. Obviously, it's a dynamic model, something that's changing. And when in your set you're talking in terms, I said myself, a microsecond, a nanosecond, whatever you said, is a long time. But in terms of information coming into the brain, if it's making a decision, that time isn't enough to change a decision that's ongoing within the brain. So you could take a snapshot, you could run...
Well, we've no way of knowing that. That falls down on assumption, doesn't it? Yes.
If you want...
that falls down on assumption, you can't get around it.
Well, if you... I mean, actually, the fact that you're going to copy a brain, I mean, is only one way of... that in itself is only an analogy. So that you can say, well, look, all I'm saying is that if I've got two brains that are exactly the same, or two pieces of information handling equipment, they're going to come out with the same answer. So what you're doing is saying, look, these two things come out with the same answer. So the one answer that's come out isn't a free choice. It's a predefined choice. So that, to go back to what you said before, the choices that are selected aren't free ones. Like you said there were limitations, but the choices that were left were free. That's not true. what happens is the one choice that comes out, even if it's an illogical one, is actually defined implicitly in the brain.
Yes, I'll accept that. I think
before, that was the interesting
I'm
thing.
not sure. I think I did accept that. What I said was that there's no such thing as absolute freedom. Freedom is an absolute, therefore freedom does not exist. Therefore there cannot be free choice.
Yes.
I will accept that your decisions are inevitable from the options, because you can only ever choose from the options. They are inevitable.
Yes.
I accept that totally. What I don't accept is that somebody else could ever 100% accurately predict them. Somebody else with an identical brain to yours that has had all the exact identical, and we're talking about pedantic identical, if you like,
Yes.
would make the same decision. Of course they would. However, that doesn't mean that anyone ever will or ever could predict accurately what you will do in every situation. So whilst you are not free in terms of free from yourself, the freedom I think a free will refers to is freedom from control by others.
The external control.
Absolutely. I think that's what it implies.
No,
Well,
well, that may be the free will that you would like to draw, but the actual facet that I wanted to explore was something more along the lines of your thoughts as they're going through your mind, what you're thinking. Now, this conversation, what comes out is an inevitable thing, so that things are determined. I think it's called determinism from that very fact.
Yes, but of course it is inevitable, and because it's inevitable, nobody else has control of it, and because that nobody else has control of it, they can influence it,
So
but because they can put input in. But it's the freedom that, when people talk about free will, I think they're talking about, as I say, freedom from others to control that will. I don't think they're talking about free in the annals of time. But I accept that that is one interpretation you can put on the word of free. And if you do, then the word fails.
So you now agree that determinism is a viable proposition?
I'm not really sure what you mean by determinism.
I mean, you said 7 minutes ago that you didn't think things were determined, that things were inevitable to happen. But what you've just recently said is 1 minute ago that things are inevitable.
Okay, if you like, yes, I will give you that. But the reason I will give it to you... No, the reason I will give it to you...
But you changed your point of view.
The reason... No, I haven't. The reason I will give it...
Oh, well, you said before that things were inevitable, and now you're saying they are.
No, I'm not saying that I said before they weren't. I'm not saying that they are now. Inevitability, in order for it to be inevitable, I would say to you that someone has got to say, look, it is inevitable. He will make that decision. Now, it's not inevitable in everybody else's concept. However, I accept that because of the history, because of the minute history of the brain, that individual brain, it will make a particular decision. But it's... So it is inevitable, but it could never be predictable.
But merely by the limitations of what we can do?
If you like, limitations of what we can do, but the limitations of what we can do are no less important than the limitations of what the brain can do.
So the point that comes out there...
We're actually playing a language game, aren't we? We're not talking about serious things. We're playing with words, which is always fairly impossible, because no word has a totally accurate meaning.
Semantics, hell, I don't know much about that.
Unfortunately, you're going to need to. If you want to play semantics, you've got to know about them.
Well, the point...
See, I will give you a moral victory, but semantically, you have no victory.
Well, you see, if I could just put this one...
From one pedant to another...
From one pedant. That's not the same as pederast.
I refuse to answer that. Go
on. Thank you very much. If you... what you've just said, hell, I should have written it down. The thing about the inevitability, you said that in people's terms of what is inevitable, things were not inevitable. Is that correct?
Virtually. In other words...
Would you like to...
I didn't actually say they weren't inevitable. I said they weren't predictable. In other words, if I throw you over a cliff from about 5,000 feet onto a solid floor, I think it's inevitable that you will be dead. I think I can predict that you will be dead on impact, if not before. But...
You've got me convinced, yes.
Well, I don't have to. I mean, it doesn't take a great deal, does it? But if we make it then not 100 feet but 100 inches, then it becomes still inevitable that you're going to hit the floor.
What's that in metric?
Buggered if I know. Let's have a look. I don't know what it is in metric. I don't even know what it is in feet and inches at the moment. It's about 7 foot, isn't it? I wouldn't know. I don't know anything about maths. But it would become inevitable that you'd still hit the floor. But it wouldn't be inevitable that you'd die. It would be predictable that you'd hit the floor, but it wouldn't be predictable that you would die. So inevitable and predictable are fairly closely linked, but not inextricably. They are separate words. They do have separate meanings.
Oh, yes, agreed.
But in general conversation, I would argue that they are virtually the same word. If something is inevitable, then it is also predictable. So inevitability is an inevitability of event. Predictability is somebody's ability to predict that event. So the brain will make an inevitable decision, but it will never be a predictable decision. So your photograph, be it a moving photograph or a still photograph, will never be of use, because you will never have the ability to predict, because there are things that happen in instantaneous time that change it.
And you claim that they well, I would agree with you in as much as at the moment we can't compensate for everything that happens in the universe, and so predict everything. But theoretically, and it's the theory that's interesting, because thereby hangs free will, if you like. In theory, it could well be done. In which case, there isn't free will, and me being thrown off a cliff, you could predict whether I was going to die or not, because you could in an instantaneous time slice, you could run through the entire history of the universe, and everything could be known, and then all you would have to do is merely access it, in theory.
Well, I'm afraid the problem is with that there have been people who have been thrown, one person at least, that has been thrown off a 100-foot cliff and didn't die. However, all this is rather like a game I used to play with myself. I hope nobody takes half of that sentence and leaves it alone, but they'd be right if they did, because I was 14 once. However, the game I used to play was this.
You wear glasses?
If we went back only a bit, I just do it a bit.
Just when you use your eyes.
If you go back in time, say 100 years, 50 years, it doesn't really matter. If you go back in time and kill an ant, then you might think that would have no effect on the future.
Well,
but of course, right. But we have to say that at that zillisecond, that instant when that ant died, the universe was in a particular state. And everything that happened afterwards happened as a result of the state the world was in at that time.
Yes.
Now, the state the world was in included that ant's life.
Yes, indeed.
So if that ant's life is terminated, there is no logical reason why the whole of the world shouldn't change from that instant, because the whole of the world's life and future depends on that instant, the circumstances at that time.
Yes.
And I could never come to an answer, but you can't when you're 10. But those are the kind of questions I used to ask myself, which is why I'm now an absolute lunatic. What would be the effect? Would the whole world be different?
Would the whole world be
different?
I
don't know, would I marry somebody else? A different person than the person I did marry?
Because you trod on an ant?
Because somebody killed an ant, because the world's status at an instant changed.
Yes, of course the world will be different.
The world will be different.
But how?
I've no idea.
But how?
I've no idea, but it kept me awake for bloody months. All right? Rather like your conversation.
Not as long as free will has kept me awake, I can tell you.
Graham, I think every thinking human being has these nonsense ideas in their head that drive them insane slowly, which is why all great geniuses ended up loopy. Ta-ra.
Good night.
Please listen to my ditty. It may not be very witty, nor even slightly funny, but it will help save you money. For me, from cradle to grave, I aim to shop and save. I buy out I need, for next to nought indeed. There's meat and veg and cheese and pigs and booze and clothes and cards and sweets and pigs and pet food and household things. So shop and save a load down Blackpool's Waterloo Road, in the market they call New, and Overt Road, the M2. Thank you. Poetry in prices, from the New Market and M2 Market.
It's the place to come, where shopping can be fun. The Newmarket Waterloo Road.
Macmillan's. Now there's a good Scottish name.
Is that the Macmillans on Blackburn Road?
Aye, sell McAudis and McVolkswagens they do.
Isn't that Audi and Volkswagen?
Dinna argue with me, lassie. Being a Scot, I know McValue when I see it.
So we're going to buy a McAudi?
Or a McVolkswagen. Macmillan's will make us a good McOffer and an car.
A McOff? Oh, yes, but what if I prefer something else?
Yes, Sassenach, haven't they convinced you?
Oh, yes. I think a McAudi or a McVolkswagen would be magnificent.
Now you're talking sense. Macmillan's, McBlackburn Road, McBolton. Telephone 31464. McCommon sense.
The Munich Beer Festival is famous throughout the world for everyone to have a good time. There's more barrels than at the OK Corral, and departure dates are the 17th or the 24th of September or the 1st of October. You'll stay at the classy Gasthof Zillertal in Strasse, if we can drag you away from the bar, that is. And the cost, half board, is just £99. But make sure you ring Avalon Travel today, because this is on a first-come, first-served basis. Get it? Avalon Travel, phone Bolton 398788.
The Great Red Rose Radio Charity Nutty Night Out is at the Gin, that's Gin Square, Blackpool, on Thursday, July the 23rd. Come along and challenge our presenters on the pool table, throw darts at Allan Beswick's photo, and have a go at the crazy games and competitions. We start at 8, and the evening is one of our 7-Up party nights. There are plenty of 7-Up and Thwaites goodies to be won as well, and the whole night is in aid of the Winged Fellowship Trust, the charity which provides holidays for handicapped people in Lancashire. So don't forget the Red Rose Nutty Night Out at the Gin in Blackpool on Thursday, July the 23rd.
Oh, what an atmosphere. I love a party with a...
And I'll probably be there, Miss Sen. How doing, Ian?
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, Al. I got on to you 4 months ago. Well, I heard 4 months ago on your programme about the 99 Flake. Can you remember?
Yes.
Yeah? Well,
How did it get its name?
Yeah. Well, is there an answer?
Yes, there is. We're told by the company that make the 99 Flake, or originally made it, and I think it was in America, it just was a catchy name. There was no reason for it at all. They were just looking for a name to give to it, or the 99 ice cream. They were looking for a name to give to it, and they decided they'd call it a 99 because it sounded really hip and with it and smart as out.
Oh, well, I've heard different tonight.
You've been what?
I've heard different. I've been asking all over. I'm an ice cream man myself.
Oh, yeah, well, that's how they got it. I'd be more interested in a company that brought out a 69 Flake, but that's another story. Ta-ra. I'll do David.
Wait, Alan?
Yes?
I've been waiting a long time for this phone call.
Well, don't waste it. Get on with it.
And I've been looking out the window. I've seen this funny thing in the sky.
What is it?
I don't know. It's big, it's round, and it's got green furry men inside.
Well,
Have you got any ideas what it is, Alan?
Yes, it's an illusion. How do Ken?
Hi, Al.
Hiya.
Now then, tell me this. You mention sometimes about your previous jobs, or you don't mention them, they're brought up in conversation.
Yes.
Well, I won't go through them because everybody knows them. But I'll tell you what, there's one that you don't actually make any mileage out of, you don't tend to mention it. Now, my mate told me that you used to clean Owen Oyston's swimming pool out for him. Is that right? Now, that is creeping. Is that creeping or what, Alan?
I used to clean him out of it. No, not his swimming pool, no. I clean his shoes most days, but he mails them in, you know.
Anyway, I won't take the coat off. I'm not stopping.
No, you're not. You're right. Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. Ken, but not the Ken, not Ken Platt, who used to take his coat off if he was stopping, but never seemed to be on workers' playtime. 10 minutes to 1, time for the melodic moment.
Red Rose Radio.
Well, I suppose it's melodic, at least.
The 1 o'clock news, this is Bill Bingham.
Ring him
if you dare.
Allan Beswick, the late night show.
And it's exactly 10 minutes past 1. The telephone number remains the same. We're here until 2, and the number is Preston 561000.
Red Rose, nighttime radio.
How do Neil?
Hello, Alan.
Hello.
How are you?
What do you want?
Well, I'm phoning, right?
I know
on
you.
holiday to Spain, right? We were walking down the street, and there's these guys loving bangers about, and one of these
What are bangers?
fireworks, yeah?
I see. I thought you meant sausages. Go on.
No, not sausages. And there was one of them, and it was about 6-7 inches long, and he chucked it on the floor, and he started spinning around, spinning like crazy, and he started chasing this woman down the street, you know, sort of spinning around, and she was screaming her head off.
Why do I want to know this?
Well, one thing, the police never did anything. No sign of police.
Well, if they weren't there, they couldn't really do anything, could they, you garmless prat? Get off. How do, Steve?
Hello, Alan.
What do you want?
I'd like to talk about the Sally Moon appeal.
There is no Sally Moon appeal.
Well, you know that heartbeat appeal, what she does.
There is. She doesn't. She used to. She did it for a year. She doesn't do it anymore. It's now called the heartbeat appeal. Go on.
Well, you know how you said about canvassers coming, knocking at the door and all that?
Yes.
Well, they've been coming round knocking at our door and asking for money.
Well, I suggest you say to him, get lost.
So that's what you say?
That's what I say to anyone that knocks at my door that I don't want.
So what else do you say?
You say, get lost. What else do you need to say? Then you close the door.
Well, why are they coming around asking for money?
Perhaps you ought to address that question to them, but I can presume that it's because they want your money.
Why?
So that they can build the centre and maintain the centre and update the centre and all the other things they do with the money.
So why don't they do it through another cause?
I have no idea why they don't do it through another course. That is the course they've chosen. I deplore their decision, but I can't change it.
So coming around knocking the door is a good way of getting money out of other people?
No, as I just said, I deplore it. I think it's a reprehensible way to get money. I think it's disgusting, disgraceful and diabolical, and I think they should stop it tomorrow. There. What more do you want me to say?
Well, it's from Red Rose, though, isn't it, still?
No, it isn't from Red Rose. It's nothing to do with Red Rose.
Oh, because they still got Red Rose on the cars.
I don't care what they've still got on their cars. It's nothing to do with Red Rose.
So that's false, then, what they're doing now?
False? I have no idea. It's just nothing to do with Red Rose. It was the Sally Moon heartbeat appeal. Now it isn't.
So...
I don't know why you keep saying so. I don't know how positive I have to be with you. I've given you very, very straight statements. What more do you want me to say?
Nothing.
Then I won't. How do to another Steve?
I'll do, Alan.
What do you want?
Earlier on, you were voicing a certain amount of trepidation about computers.
Yes.
About 20 years ago, on, dare I mention it, Radio 1, John Peel used to have a show about 1968 on a Wednesday night. One evening he interviewed this bloke called Harvey Machuso. Probably nobody remembers this bloke in the world, but he had a little society called the International Society for the Abolition of Data Processing Machines. Well, I joined this society. It was free. I'm a lifetime member. And Harvey's address at the time was somewhere down the home counties. He wrote back, apologised for writing on a typewriter because he disliked machines intensely, and gave advice on how to not terrorise computers, but just how to foul them up a little bit. Things like sticking bits of sellotape across certain parts of bills when you sent them back to pay them.
Yeah, I do that.
Which, you do it as well?
Yeah, I make pinholes in them.
Yeah, and that was another one of the things.
I know, yeah.
Making pinholes in,
yeah, we do
bits
that.
of sellotape on.
We have another one as well. We have another one, is it? We have a machine here. It's just an electromagnet in actual fact, but it's a tape cleaning machine.
Yeah.
You know, for the tapes we use, recording tapes. And what you do there, if you put your checkbook through it, it means your cheque has to be cleared manually. Because it won't work with there's a little electronic bit in a cheque. Right. And you put it through that and it knackers it. It's great. Right. It's good fun.
And we had lots of fun doing that in those days. So we sort of stopped now. I mean, because the machines have got a little bit complicated, so it's a little bit harder to do it now. We weren't really computer terrorists, and microchip marauders or anything, but it was just a little bit of fun, just blocking up the system now and then.
Good idea. I'm all in favour of it.
Fighting back a little
Irresponsibility, that's what the world's about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Bye-bye.
And another Steve.
Hello.
Hello to you, yes.
I wonder if you can give me a bit of advice with regard to a bill from a garage. What happened was, my engine on the car was knocking a bit, so I took it into a garage locally, and they told me they thought it was the crankshaft. So I said, fine, how much is it going to cost me? And the head mechanic that took me out in the car said, well, about £150. So I said, fine, we'll go ahead and get it done. So they gave me approximately 3 days. It would take about 3 days to do it. I rung back in 3 days, he still hadn't finished the car, so there'd be another couple. So I rung him back 2 days later. He said, yeah, it will probably be ready the following Monday. So I said, well, how much is it going to cost? So he said, well, I'll work it out, ring you back. So he rung me back and he said, £350. So I said, well, that's a bit much considering your original quote of 150, like. So he said, well, that's everything, that's labour charges, VAT and everything. So I said, oh, okay then, fine. And I accepted that. I've gone back to pick the car up today, and they've come up with another quote of £441. How do I stand?
Tell him he gave you a quotation of £150, you are prepared to allow a certain margin forever, you'll give him 200 quid, take it or leave it, and if he won't release the car, take him to court.
Well, I've actually got the car.
Have you paid him?
No, I haven't paid the bill, I just drove off with the car.
Right, well I suggest you send him a cheque for £200 and say, you gave me a quotation of 150, there's 33.3 recurring % more, be happy with that or sue me, but you're getting the more.
And I'll be alright doing that?
Well, he'll then sue you and the court will decide.
Oh, fine.
Okay.
Okay,
cheers.
Thanks a lot.
How do Richard?
Hello, I think hunting, especially fox hunting, should be banned because it produces injustices.
Well, everything in life produces injustices.
Well, I know the British legal system, the judiciary, is meant to be one of the best in the world, if not the best.
Well, I don't know what the judiciary have got to do with fox hunting. Will you tell me?
Well, there have been many cases in which, due to very rich magistrates who usually fox hunt.
Well, very rich magistrates don't usually fox hunt. I'm sure some do and some don't. We're not in a position to make such a presumption sensibly. Will you make your point and get off, because I'm getting bored?
Well, many people have got away scot-free after injuring people who are against fox hunting because of, let's say, connections.
I think it's more likely to be because people who go to interfere with fox hunting are putting themselves in a position where they may well get injured.
Not necessarily.
Yes, necessarily.
Not always.
Well, I didn't say always. I said they may well be putting themselves in such a position. If you want to cite a particular case, I'll be prepared to examine what you perceive as the evidence. But if you're making generalities, then I say to you they're crap.
Okay, one case, a Land Rover containing a few people who are against blood sports was driving down a road when it was cut off from behind and in front.
Tell me what